There are 32 evolutions in Clash Royale, soon to be 33, and while most of them are pretty good, there are 10 that you should absolutely stay away from. Starting off with the Goblin Drill. Not that I think anybody sees the Goblin Drill evolution and is inclined to get it, but I have to get it out of the way because it is the worst of the worst. The Goblin Drill Evo, if you are playing Helen Keller, may get 400 to 500 extra damage. Actually, you'd probably take the whole tower, but that's not... If you're playing the Goblin Drill evolution, if you're playing Goblin Drill, your Goblin Drill gets like 500 damage. Your opponent plays any one of a Dark Prince, Valkyrie, Bowler to counter it. If you are playing the evolution, you might squeeze in a couple hundred extra damage because the whatever counter your opponent is using for the drill doesn't just disappear when the drill moves to the other side of the tower. They go follow it, and you, as a result, maybe get one bonus goblin stab. They have nerfed the drill Evo so many times, or at least 3 times, that it is just not worth using at all anymore. Next up is the Wizard. The Wizard Evo is very popular for some reason. Well, actually, it's probably because it's one of the cards you get introduced to early on in the game, and it makes sense. It's easy to play. The problem is it gets outshined by every single other ranged evolution in the game, and just the card itself really sucks. So in order to play the Wizard Evo, you have to run a normal wizard in your deck. That's right off the bat, that's hindering you. And second of all, the Evo Wizard isn't even doing that well right now. Even in decks like Giant, where it was getting used a lot, it's not worth it to use it because the Wizard consistently underperforms. You're going to see value out of every single other ranged evolution more than you see value out of the Wizard, and the normal Wizard sucks. So overall, it's just a pretty bad combo to run the Evo Wizard, and you're never going to, I mean, you'll see more value out of him. Sometimes you'll be able to get ASMR tingles by blowing up a minion horde or a skeleton army, but overall you'd be way better just using a different card. He's also way too expensive. Next up is the Pekka. Now this might surprise some people, but if you've been in the scene of Clash Royale for a little while, you would know why I'm saying this. The Pekka got really heavily nerfed a few months back, including its range, a nerf to its range, a nerf to how much it heals, and since then it is not recovered. The Pekka evolution is just not getting any value or enough value when it kills things to keep it alive long enough for it to make a difference. Usually, whatever counters the Pekka will counter the Pekka regardless of if it's evoed or not. It no longer heals significantly off things like Goblin Gangs, Skarmies, what have you. And the Pekka will just, like, it's a good, like, decent option in bridge spam decks. So if you just run the normal Pekka, you get an extra Evo slot. So why would I not just use like Battle Ram and Zap or whatever other combination of Executioner? Maybe, I mean, Pekka's not even that good of a card right now, so the Evo's not going to be that good. But even if it is, you just run the normal Pekka and run different Evo slots. Pekka is not doing enough with its heal to like give you a reason to use it over a different evolution. Next up is the Bomber. The Bomber is it's not necessarily bad, but it has fell off a lot recently because of how many other splash support troop kind of role options there are. A lot of the meta has turned into you run guards or Goblin Gang, and that role used to be Bomber. You'd try and run the Bomber because you would run like really aggressive decks, and then you'd use the Bomber to not get 3 crowned or whatever. The Bomber as a card is just not being used right now. The Evo Bomber no longer gets good enough value. His chip damage is, it was slowly falling off, and now it's probably at its all-time low. You can squeeze a couple of chip damage hits out, but why would you use that when you could probably get a lot more value and apply a lot more pressure with the Firecracker? So the Bomber probably at its lowest it's ever been. Don't really know if it needs a buff or if it's kind of just the meta not being swarmy enough to run bombers, but it's just not a good evolution right now and is not worth investing into. Next up is the Goblin Giant. The Goblin Giant Evo, it is making a little bit of a comeback right now, but don't let that fool you. It is not worth it to try and invest in Goblin Giant, whether it's Goblin Giant Sparky, Goblin Giant Pekka. Just because it is currently abusing a couple of decks in the meta does not mean that you should pool resources into it. It's not a good enough Evo to just survive the cancer meta that's going on right now. No beatdown decks are having extreme amounts of success outside of a few Giant players and Lava players because they always just coin flip matchups at the end of season top ladder. It's not worth the pain. I'm trying to save you guys from the pain of trying to max a Goblin Giant deck and just having it completely go nowhere with you. Goblin Giant as an Evo is a pretty decent Evo. It can be really annoying, but Goblin Giant as a card it's just really bad right now. So I wouldn't recommend Goblin Giant at all because it really struggles in the meta. And with these upcoming balance changes, there's no sign of the meta getting really better. Tesla, another Evo that did just get a little bit of a buff and has jumped up from being one of the worst, if not the worst Evo, to probably around like 25th. The Tesla is just not worth pooling your resources into. The cannon, absolutely. Top 3 Evo that you should probably get even after its nerf. Really good, but it's kind of fading a little bit because of the current meta, but Tesla is just not something you should upgrade. Even if you do run Tesla Evo is not worth it at all. The Tesla Evo doesn't end up doing that much really at all, because I think the at all counter is like 3 or 4 now, but it really just doesn't end up being a useful card in a lot of circumstances where you'd probably just get the same value from going log. You want to use the Evo Tesla that kills things like swarm units and stuff, and occasionally it will be really nice, but the moral of the story is half the time you use the Tesla, you just use it like a normal Tesla, and the cycle decks that use Tesla so much really don't see that much extra value out of the Tesla ever, and it's a card that isn't really even that good. Even the decks that use Tesla outside of like Expo could use a different building and have a higher success rate, like Eye Tower or Cannon. Tesla's in a weird spot and the Evo isn't very good. Next up are wall breakers. Now, wall breakers are a Evo that are pretty popular and pretty strong right now, but there's a reason for that, and that is the supporting cast of their decks being really good in the meta. Minor wall breakers, not really a thing. They are, you know, some one tricks that use it, and they've been using it for 7 years, so that's why they continue to use it. And it's not worth it for a new player to get those wall breakers evoed, because the majority of the time they don't do things, and really the wall breakers are a card that you have to put a lot of thought process into. They kind of just don't outplay your opponent naturally. Usually when you counter wall breakers, you counter wall breakers, especially in lower arenas. It's not something I'd recommend if you're not a top player facing against the top matchups in the game. Musketeer is an interesting one. It was between Musketeer, Firecracker, and E-Drag, but I think E-Drag in Beatdown is a very good option, and I think Firecracker is a really annoying Evo that's definitely not bottom 10 in the game, even though she's pretty easy to kill. The Musketeer, however, is just, it's an Evo that consistently screws you over sometimes, and it doesn't get enough value with its snipes, because although you can get really cool clips where you like snipe an Evo, Musketeers, like you snipe a cannon with an Evo Musketeer, or you snipe a support unit that your opponent's using to kill it. The problem is a lot of Musketeer decks use Musketeer and cycle it really quickly, and they win games off of getting multiple Musketeers on the board. So if you rely on cycling Musketeers and you've got an Evo Musketeer that you have to play at a specific time in a specific place, it can screw you over, and has many times, which is kind of the reason that 2.6 players choose not to use it. Mega Knight. Interestingly enough, I'm putting the Mega Knight on here because the Mega Knight is something that is very, very easily countered, especially as you move your way up the ranks. If you get this Evo for free, have at it, go for it. But if you're looking for something to invest into, don't pick the Mega Knight. It's not worth it. You're not going to get the type of value that you're probably thinking you're going to get because you got stomped by Mega Knight 1 time or 10 times or 100 times, just because you're playing it wrong or because your deck is susceptible to it or whatever it may be. The Mega Knight is very overrated, especially from a casual perspective, and although it's really annoying, it's never going to be that needle mover that changes how you play the game and how many trophies you get. Mega Knight Evo is just not strong enough to carry you, and the decks aren't that good in the meta right now. There are very few solid Mega Knight decks, so the Mega Knight Evo is just not something worth investing your pool of resources into. Next up is the Barbarians. The Barbarian Evo is just not very good because it's consistently inconsistent. The Barbarians, some matchups, amazing. Other matchups, why do I have Barbarians in my deck? Damn it, they don't do anything, and they die really easily. The problem is, if we're looking for Evos that a new player, or Evos that a player with not many Evos are looking to unlock to move the needle and get better at the game or get easier matchups, the Barbarians don't change much. If you play the Barbarians, they get the same amount of value as they would if they were non-Evo Barbarians very often. Like, your Barbarians sometimes will get extra value because of that rage and because they survive Fireball, but that doesn't happen often enough to justify investing in the Evo Barbs. They are in a few decks that they could probably be replaced in or played with no Evo, such as Lava, such as that Bridge Spam Pump deck, such as Golem, even though Golem doesn't really run them that much anymore. There are just, it's so many better Evos. I look at how is the base card and how is the Evo, and if the Evo isn't that much better than the base card, it's not worth investing into unless it's like a really, really good card like Cannon, for example, because the Evo is really good and the card is really good. But that's it. 10 Evos that you absolutely should not invest into. Let me know if you have any questions or comments down below.